Chapter 56. Decided to go to Rongshan to enter the nest. And the next day it began to drizzle, and it was even colder. Last night, Wei Ran was hugged by Mu Ziking and returned to the caravan to clean it up. After cleaning up, she fell asleep and was awakened by the shaking. So when she got up this morning, she looked sleepy again. Mu Ziking dressed her, squeezed out toothpaste and washed her face with hot water. After applying skincare to her, he picked her up from the caravan and fed her for breakfast spoon by spoon. The people at Sun Saying's side were dismantling and assembling the tent. It would be broad daylight, and the Element Palazzo caravan was recognized by two supernatural beings. They came to take a closer look, and excitedly asked Jiang Nanfeng, who was nearby. "Brother, your RV is really a good guy. Where did you get it?" This big guy Jiang Nanfeng patted the body of the RV casually, glanced at the two supernatural beings, and chattered nonsense. "Give it a go. I saw it on the road the other day, but that person didn't want to give it to me, so I just gave it a shot, just." Both the person with the ability and the person with the ability can know whether the other party has the ability and the level of the ability, but if the other party, a person with a higher level, can choose to hide the level. Like Jiang Nanfeng, they just hide their own level and only let others know that it is level 50. The two supernatural beings were more than 10 levels of supernatural beings, and at this moment they heard the brutality of this 50-level supernatural being and hurried away. In fact, Jiang Nanfeng also had considerations for saying this. Like them, they can always get some supplies out from time to time. If there is no reason, it will definitely make people suspicious after a long time. Wei Ran revived after eating full of energy, and she and Xiao Ying packed up the things outside the RV one by one, ready to go. At this time, a person came from the Snow Mountain base, and Mu Ziking, who was sitting beside him, had a somewhat commanding attitude. "Our management will let you go over and have a word with you." Jiang Nanfeng smiled happily. "I said, buddy, now it's you who wants to talk to us. Tell her, we don't want to talk to her yet." The young guy may have never been bullied like this before, and he was a little annoyed. "Yi, it's an honor for the management of our Shushan base to meet you. Do you still want to live in the base?" Jiang Nanfeng sneered. "Whoever loves this honor will take it. We are not interested at all." That's why the young man turned around angrily and returned to his life. After a while, Sun Saying came over with a sullen face and said coldly to Mu Ziking, "Let's talk again, just the two of us." Su Yi and the others just looked at Sun Saying with an ignorant look. "It means to go away." And Mu Ziking didn't tell them to back off. "One is whether you like it or not." Sun Saying's face turned pale for a while. Thinking of the news just received, she gritted her teeth and said, "You clearly know why I went to the lair." Mu Ziking raised his eyes and glanced at her, then moved away. Sun Saying mistakenly thought that Mu Ziking was trying to deny it, so she took 2 steps closer and lowered her volume. "I know you have used egg liquid, otherwise your power level would not be so high. You must be here for this is here. We cooperate, the egg fluid will be divided in half, or you can do it on June 4th. Mu Ziking looked at Wei Ran, who was moving a folding table. He frowned and got up and turned his back to Sun Saying, wanting to walk over. But Sun Saying misunderstood that Mu Ziking wanted to have other ideas about egg liquid. She slightly raised her voice and said to Mu Ziking's back, "Don't try to take it all by yourself. I told Mu Ziking that I, Sun Saying, are not the only ones watching this Rongshan lair. There are also." A person from the Snow Mountain base walked quickly behind her, interrupted her words. Management. The people surveying ahead replied that people from other bases are about to arrive here. This sentence made Sun Saying turn around abruptly, and had no time to think about anything else, and walked back to her camp quickly. Then he walked towards Wei Ran and took the extremely light folding table. More than 30 people from Sun Saying packed up quickly and set off directly after only 20 minutes. Not long after Sun Saying left, Mu Ziking and the others also set off in an RV. Mu Ziking was sitting on the sofa in the room, with Wei Ran leaning on his arms. His eyes were looking out of the window, and his slender fingers with clear bones pointed at the table. At this time, 6 or 7 cars came out of a branch road ahead. Gu Ming looked at the people in one of the cars and looked at Mu Ziking in the rearview mirror. "Brother Cheng, Chung Shuxian is here too. Turning his head, his eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. Then Mu Zikang's warm palm was attached to the back of her back to caress her emotions. She put aside everything softly and settled in his arms. Now that she hears this name, she no longer has too many out-of-control emotions, but she still feels disgusted. He probably went there for the lair in Rongshan. His level has increased a lot, and he's also at level 40, Mu Zikang said coldly. Jiang Nanfeng was surprised and said, "Aren't these people afraid of death? I just noticed that more than half of the Yishi mountain base is below the 10th level, none at the 15th level, and only 5 at the 20th level. I can't get out of Rongshan." Su Yi looked at Chung Shuxian's side. Chung Shuxian has about 10 or so 20-level supernatural powers. It seems that Chung Shuxian is better at recruiting people than Snow Mountain Base. "Brother, can the lair on Rongshan Mountain detect how many aliens there are?" Wei Ran asked curiously. After all, the foot of the mountain is still a long way from the lair. Mu Zikang caressed her delicate and beautiful curvy back, and looked towards the distance outside the window. It exceeds Sun Siying's estimate, but the number does not exceed 300. When Chen Wei heard this number, he didn't count Mu Zikang, and measured their current strength based on the data alone. I think he thought for a all and said, "We can try it too. If it doesn't work, then Brother Chung and Su Yi can just bring us out. Groups of up to 50 or 60 aliens. Just try to see if your ability can cope with the number of aliens in a small nest." Chen Wei's proposal and Gu Ming agreed unanimously. Su Yi also excitedly said, "I haven't been to the lair yet, this one can be visited." Because of Wei Ran's previous life, she still resisted the lair a little bit, but she also knew that the amount was really important for Jiang Nanfeng and the others. It's a training opportunity. At this time, Mu Zikang squeezed her little hand and hugged her tightly in his arms. His strong heartbeat also seemed to give her courage. She raised her head, squinted her eyes, and smiled, teasing herself. "I want to be by my brother's side all the time, and I want my brother to protect me." Of course, Mu Zikang also knew that Rongshan was an opportunity for Gu Ming and others to temper, but he was taking Wei Ran's emotions into consideration. He hasn't made a decision for a long time, and he can't force her to face it. But now that Wei Ran was able to face it, it meant that she really wanted to let go of her past. Mu Zikang smiled and pinched her tall and small nose. "Just you." Then he looked at Gu Ming. "Go to Rongshan." Chapter 57. Arriving at Rongshan, nay. "Boss, there seems to be a high-level supernatural person in the caravan behind us." Chung Shuxian looked gloomily at the big caravan in the rearview mirror outside the car. He already knew it when he was at the intersection just now, and the ability level was still over level 50. Now a high-level supernatural person jumped out of nowhere, and this road is the only way to go to Rongshan. It is obvious where they are going. At this time the RV was about to pass them. Chung Shuxian stared at the window of the passing car to see who it was, but unfortunately it was all covered with black film, and no one could be seen at all. Before today he was the only one with the highest level, and he had never heard of anyone with a higher level. Suddenly a person appeared in front of him. "No, there is one more." Chung Shuxian gloomily touched the part of his forehead that had already healed but left an obvious scar, which seemed to be still causing him a dull pain. Mu Zikang and his party arrived at the foot of Rongshan Mountain around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Mu Zikang motioned for Wei Ran to put the car away. There were 7 or 8 cars parked here at the foot of the mountain. It seemed that Sun Siying's group had already gone up the mountain. Rongshan is very large and there is no road to drive up the mountain. Even if you reach the foot of the mountain, you have to walk up the mountain. Zhao Mu Zikang sensed the location and needed to walk for 5 hours to reach the lair. They will carry the equipment bags that had been packed in the car. Although it was still a long distance away from the lair, it was a lair after all, so they hung their laser guns and loaded guns on their shoulders. Wei Ran took out the wireless communication intercom equipment and locator for everyone to wear. One of these 2 devices can communicate without barriers as long as they are on the same channel within 5 kilometers, and the other is to prevent dispersal and can accurately locate the location. No one knows what will happen after entering it. These two devices are to know what is going on with each other in case they are scattered. Mu Zikang came over and put it on for Wei Ran. No matter where he put her, he didn't feel at ease. Only by his side could he feel at ease. After cooking and preparing everything, they quickly caught up with the people at the snowy mountain base, who had gone up the mountain for an hour. Sun Saiyang saw Mu Zikang and his group, who came right behind, and was about to get mad at Mu Zikang's outburst, but was stopped by Chen Wei first. Miss Sun, he said with a gentle smile on his face, we talk. Flashback to what Mu Zikang said to him before departure. Since you have decided to go to the Rongshan lair to train, then use this opportunity to help the Shushan base. You have to let the Shushan base remember, this is a favor, not a transaction. So what Chen Wei started talking about today was that after getting the egg liquid, they would ask for 70% and only leave 30% for Sun Ziyang. Of course Sun Ziyang was very annoyed. Of course she didn't want to. After some intense negotiations, Chen Wei was still stubborn and unwilling to give in. Just when the talks were about to collapse, Chen Wei said calmly, Cheng Shuxian is at level 40, and he is going up the mountain with about 10 people with abilities at level 20. This sentence completely collapsed Sun Ziyang's negotiation defense. Said that she did not have as many supplies as Cheng Shuxian, as many weapons as him, and did not have as many people as him, so Sun Ziyang had no choice but to grit her teeth and agree. Because an agreement has been reached with the Snow Mountain base, they have to walk up the mountain with Sun Ziyang. They couldn't just teleport to the entrance of the lair and count their fingers in boredom, and wait slowly for Sun Ziyang and the others to come up. It's unrealistic to have too many people with teleportation, and it's too wasteful of abilities. When it was getting dark, it was not advisable to continue walking. They stayed on a flat ground and set up tents. Wei Ran estimated the time at that time, and would definitely spend the night in the mountains, so he also prepared a simple portable tent and buckled it under everyone's equipment bag, so that it would not occupy the equipment bag. After they had pitched their tent, a fire was lit. Wei Ran gave them water to restore body function to ensure that the body is in the best condition. Sun Ziyang sent some steamed buns and water. Because weapons are the most important thing on this trip, when planning to go up the mountain at the Snow Mountain base, it is extremely simple to travel, and the food is also simplified as much as possible. Just bring steamed buns, which can fill your stomach. In order not to attract attention, they also ate some steamed buns together. We will take turns guarding tonight. Although Sun Ziyang will also be on duty, it is near the lair after all, so we should not entrust our lives to others, Chen Wei said with a straight face. Zhang Nanfeng nodded and said, Xiao Ran and Xiao Ying don't need to be on duty anymore, and Brother Cheng doesn't need it either. Brother Cheng needs to rest well and watch over us tomorrow. It's just right for us 4 big men to guard us for 2 hours each. Because we will set off again at dawn at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, so when it is nearly 10 o'clock, everyone will enter their tents to rest. In fact, it is said to be resting, and how can everyone near the nest point really fall asleep? That is, just doze their eyes for a while. Wei Ran rested her head on Mu Zikang's strong arm. Her back was pressed tightly against Mu Zikang's hard and warm chest, and she looked at the tent with her clear eyes. Mu Zikang pulled up the quilt and covered it tightly to prevent the wind from leaking in, and pressed against her delicate and fair face. Is it cold? Wei Ran placed her soft hand on his arm that was hugging her chest, shaking it gently. Shake your head. Mu Zikang's big hand lingered on her seductive curves, and whispered softly in her ear, what are you thinking? Huh? Wei Ran's breathing was slightly disturbed by his caressing, and she endured it for a moment before slowly saying, brother, have you entered my consciousness? Yes, you had nightmares every night when you first entered the Snow Mountain base. Wei Ran opened her mouth and wanted to say a lot, but in the end, only one sentence remained, I love you ... before ... now ... it's all. Mu Zikang caressed her cheek with his troubled hands in the quilt, and turned her slightly towards him. Wei Ran then bumped into his dark eyes, and then sank into his dark whirlpool. His rough fingertips caressed her still wet eyebrows picturesquely, and then slowly came to the delicate pink lips, and his slender and clean fingers slightly played with the pink tongue inside. Wei Ran stared obsessively at Mu Zikang with half-closed eyes, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. And Mu Ziking's eyes were extremely tender, and every word was clear. You say you love me. That is my life's wish. Then her thin lips fiercely kissed those delicate pink lips, straight to the city. She hugged Mu Ziking tightly when she was about to be wiped out in the turbulent waves. Mu Ziking's words kept lingering in his ears. Let her regret, but also let her completely relieved. Mu Ziking never told her about his past life, not because he cared about anything, but nothing is more important than their love at this moment. No matter what life Mu Ziking is in, all he wants is Wei Ran. After all, Mu Ziking and Wei Ran in the previous life were just a pair of lovers who didn't know how to love. One will only be strong and the other will only escape. Fortunately, all this can be restarted. Chapter 8. Go straight to the egg room and start up the mountain again at 6 o'clock the next day. 2 hours later, the Rongshan lair appeared in front of everyone, 100 meters away. This is a large cave, which should be the cave left by previous geological research. Sun Xiang came over and showed Mu Ziking the blueprint that she had detected and drawn before, and pointed out where the egg chamber was. Wei Ran looked at Sun Xiang in surprise when she saw the underground drawing. Would you like to show us this drawing? She thought that people like Sun Xiang would not share this kind of beneficial thing with others. She can use Mu Ziking to attract these high-level aliens, and then go to the egg chamber by herself. Sun Xiang knew what Wei Ran was thinking. Although she came here for the purpose, she disdained that kind of behavior. Of course, since it is a joint cooperation, then share all useful information to achieve the best results. It's a good thing you didn't think carefully. Wei Ran held up the blueprint in front of her, jokingly. I saved your life. Sun Xiang frowned. What do you mean? Wei Ran took 2 steps towards the lair. The effect of the alien on the lair protection is far beyond our imagination. Because there are very few female aliens, it is the most important thing in the nest, guarded by the most elite aliens. Once the egg chamber is invaded, the aliens will immediately destroy the egg chamber. Move away. She turned around and tilted her head to see Sun Xiang, who said calmly, also, the alien is likely to lie in ambush in the invaded egg chamber and wait for you to come. Wei Ran's words made Sun Xiang terrified. She was a little speechless. Then Sun Xiang wanted to ask Wei Ran how she knew, but was interrupted coldly by Mu Ziking. You don't need to ask any more questions, believe it or not. Mu Ziking's interruption made Sun Xiang remember that all of them are at level 50, and they must have entered many layers, so they stopped asking. Jiang Nanfeng asked at this time, how do we get in? Mu Ziking glanced at the lair in the distance, and said calmly, let's go in directly from the entrance of the cave. The aliens would sleep in the lair when the weather was coldest. Reduce actions to reserve your own calories. Who doesn't really know what the inside has been remodeled by aliens, so the best way to enter from the cave. After everything was ready, Mu Ziking and his group put on full-face gas masks with night vision and gas masks. A few supernatural beings who only wore night vision goggles asked in fear, why is there poison inside? Wearing a mask, he said in a muffled voice, it's not poisonous, but he. You'll find out when you get in. Mu Ziking and the others loaded the laser gun and assault rifle hanging on their shoulders with a click, and entered the cave first. In fact, Sun Xiang didn't know much about weapons, but she could also see the huge difference between the weapons in Mu Ziking's hands and the weapons on her side. She had no doubts in her heart. Since they have such good equipment, why are they completely unfamiliar with this group of people, since the end of the world? Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng raised their guns and walked in front. Mu Ziking and Wei Ran were in the middle, Chen Weiwei and Yan Yang were on both sides, and Su Yui was behind. On Sun Xiang's side, because Chen Wei had talked to her about too many people entering the lair, the disadvantages outweighed the benefits, and there were still many 10-level supernatural beings who were basically sent to death. So when she entered the lair today, she let 5 supernatural beings above level 20 come in, and the rest were guarded outside. There was still some light when I first entered the cave, but after entering tens of meters, it gradually became invisible. But they could see inside with night vision gas masks. At this time, there are 2 forked intersections in front of their eyes, one left and one right. Mu Ziking walked straight to the right one, and the people behind hurriedly followed. The lair was dark and damp, coupled with the extremely unpleasant stench of decay in the cave. Sun sighing and the others couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to vomit. Suddenly, Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng were walking in front of them, but they were grabbed by Muzi King. At the same time, he raised his hand to stop the people behind him. The raised hand pointed to the wall on the right in front. Only then did everyone realize that there was a forked entrance. Then, Muzi King stretched out 2 fingers and 5 fingers in the hand that Muzi King raised. 25 aliens are here. They turned and walked towards the fork against the wall, walking slowly step by step without making a sound. Gu Ming held a gun and approached the first one slowly, and gradually the inside of the fork gradually appeared in front of Gu Ming. There is not only a fork hole in it, but also a hole in it. Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng went in first with their guns. After confirming that it was safe, they made an okay gesture with their hands and everyone followed into the entrance of the fork hole. However, when he walked in again, he passed another cave door. Gu Ming stretched out his head slightly to poke in, but retracted after a while. He stretched out the fingers of 2 and 5, then clicked inside again, and circled around. 25 aliens, all here. The people on Sun Siang's side also understood the meaning, and quickly wanted to set up their guns to prepare to attack, but Wei Ran stretched out his hand sharply to stop them. You can't shoot, it will attract other aliens, now you need to find the egg chamber. Everyone looked at Muzi King's instructions. Muzi King first made a gesture towards Gu Ming, and Gu Ming nodded in understanding. He quickly took out a palm-sized explosive bomb from his equipment bag and placed it by the entrance. Before coming in, Muzi King told Gu Ming, "Put bombs in a certain distance inside, and move this nest to the ground when we come out." Then he made a forward movement, meaning to pass through them. After they all came in, they could clearly see the 25 aliens inside. They are all dormant, some are sitting, some are lying down, standing erect. They walked carefully through the alien in the middle to the opposite door, and everything went smoothly. And just when the last person was about to step over the alien lying near the entrance of the cave, he shook his legs in fear and threw himself on the alien with an unstable center of gravity. No one had time to react at this critical moment. Just when the person's eyes were only millimeters away from the sharp teeth of the alien, it stopped, and then slowly rose, floating directly to the edge of the cave. The rescued supernatural being was frightened into a cold sweat, and limply leaned against his teammates. Sun Siang looked at Muzi King to express her gratitude but saw that Muzi King was pulling Wei Ran forward. Muzi King guessed that since the alien is afraid of the cold, no matter how the egg chamber is moved, it must be in the innermost direction, and the alien guarding it must be active and will never sleep. So Muzi King followed the alien's active induction to avoid the other aliens one by one, and came to a narrower cave entrance than the one he walked all the way just now. 10 meters away from the entrance of the cave, they vaguely heard a hissing sound coming from inside. Chapter 59. It is too dangerous to extract the egg fluid. Egg chamber. If you want to successfully obtain the egg fluid silently, you must go in with Muzi King's protective cover. Muzi King summoned 2 protective shields, one surrounding them and the other surrounding Sun Siang and the others. Then slowly walked into a long aisle, entered the rumored egg room, and then there were half-human tall alien eggs lined up all over the place. And this egg chamber is 2 stories high, and they are standing now only on the first floor. Brother. Look at the top. Wei Ran raised her eyes to look at the top with a serious look on her face. Muzi King and the others looked up and Gu Ming and the others frowned. In the upper aisle on the second floor there are 20 or 30 aliens that are slightly taller and stronger than usual, guarding the egg room. I'm afraid the elite aliens will be more difficult to deal with. Muzi King slowly turned his cold eyes upwards, and said coldly, "Cover ran to extract the egg liquid." Gu Ming and the others surrounded Wei Ran tightly. Wei Ran reached into the equipment bag and took out several barrel-sized extra-large extraction bags. These bags were originally prepared for research and experiments, so they were tough and difficult to tear, She took out a large medical box to hold these egg fluid bags. She put on gloves and pulled the automatic extraction strip of the bag, and then pierced the sharp point into the alien egg, and it would be automatically extracted. It only took 3 minutes to extract a bag. Extract from Sun Xiang on the other side, but with that kind of big syringe, the extraction of each cylinder is very slow. In order to prevent the alien from being discovered, Wei Ran replaced every 2 bags of alien eggs extracted. Now several bags have been exchanged, and the big medical box is already filled with the 4th one. And just when Wei Ran was about to take out the 5th box, she heard the hissing sound coming from above again. The overlapping sound was so loud that it echoed in the egg chamber, and she also heard the low voice of the alien. Roar. The sound came from the upper floor. Suyi looked at the 2nd floor. What's that sound? The upper part is where the female aliens are, and the elite aliens here are not only guarding, but also responsible for mating with them, Mu Zikeng said indifferently. Jiang Nanfeng asked curiously, Brother Cheng, how many female aliens are here? 1. 1? There are dozens of them, enough. No, these elite aliens seem to be very energetic. Chen Wei also mix it in. Wei Ran and Yan Yang rolled their eyes. When did he still sympathize with female aliens? Mu Zikeng looked at Suyi. Teleport to the top near the female alien and place a few bombs. Suyi responded, okay Brother Cheng. Blinking back to the protective cover, his face was a little strange. Jiang Nanfeng approached Suyi maliciously. What? It's so exciting that you won't forget it. Suyi pressed his hand on his forehead and said with a headache, that's indeed something I will never forget in my life. Jiang Nanfeng was treated like this by Suyi aroused great interest and wanted to ask Suyi, but at this time Gu Ming said coolly, the timer bomb has been set, and it will explode in 15 minutes. Okay, let's get out of the egg chamber first. Mu Zikeng pulled, then Wei Ran led them towards Sun Xiang. Mu Zikeng and the others melted into Sun Xiang's protective cover, and even frightened Sun Xiang, almost breaking the freshly extracted syringe. Let's go, Mu Zikeng said coldly and didn't care whether Sun Xiang would leave, but just announced his decision directly. But Sun Xiang and the others had only drawn about 20 tubes and they were reluctant to leave like this. Mu Zikeng tilted his head and looked sideways. His eyes were cold. You don't have to go if you don't want to, but the farther away my protective cover is from me, the weaker the protection. You can figure it out yourself. Then he directly pulled Wei Ran and Gu Ming. Few people are about to walk into the aisle quickly. Sun Xiang had no choice but to grit her teeth and say to her staff, let's evacuate. They carefully wrapped the egg liquid and put it in a bag, and followed Sun Xiang out of the egg room. But one of the supernatural beings was in a hurry and accidentally overturned the passing alien egg. The alien egg was thrown to the ground and burst, and the egg fluid flowed all over the floor, and a not yet fully formed alien fell out. Mu Zikeng, Wei Ran and the others were about to step into the aisle when they heard this. They stopped suddenly, clenched the guns in their hands and looked towards Sun Xiang. The supernatural person maintained the posture of wanting to hold the alien egg, and looked at Sun Xiang with trembling fear. Trembling Ying sister I die. Sun Xiang frowned and looked at the 2 layers slowly recede. The aliens on the 2nd floor were suddenly alerted, and all of them were attracted here, and a dozen of the aliens jumped down one after another. The supernatural being who toppled the alien eggs had never experienced so many aliens coming straight at him. He was so frightened that he ran out of the protective shield without reason, and was exposed to the aliens. Suddenly, the aliens in the entire egg room roared and rushed over. The supernatural person fled straight towards the aisle, and the aliens also chased after him. Just when the supernatural being was about to be caught up by the alien, he was bounced off by a barrier but rushed up again immediately. At this time, the barrier was full of dark alien shapes. Jiang Nanfeng grabbed the panicked supernatural being who passed by them with one hand and cursed, Mom, stand up for me. Mu Zikeng's eyes were cold. Get out of the egg chamber first. Everyone walked quickly. Not long after he walked out of the aisle, there was also a strange shape rushing towards here in front of him. The tunnel adjacent to the egg chamber is relatively narrow. If the protective cover is still used, the alien will be blocked in the aisle. It is true that the alien cannot see or hear it, but it also blocks its own attack. Gu Ming, get rid of the alien in front, Mu Zikang said to Gu Ming while retracting the protective cover. Gu Ming issued a finger in front of it, and a flashing light came out, and the dense grid suddenly extended its width and wrapped the 5 or 6 special-shaped electricity in front of it into a charred shape. Mu Zikang immediately walked to a forked hole next to him. There are too many aliens ahead. Let's go this way first. Sun Sighing and the others immediately followed. Not long after entering the cave, the barrier in the egg chamber disappeared, and most of the elite aliens chased out. Mu Zikang and the others walked straight along the Chadong Gate. All of a sudden, 5 or 6 aliens swooped over, Suyu flashed, and everyone saw only those aliens whose heads had been blown off. Suyi can now use the wind speed brought by teleportation to attack with power without encountering aliens. Sun Sighing and the others also chased after 3 or 4. She sprinkled some powder on the side of the alien, and then controlled the powder to float to the side of the alien, and the 2 aliens in front immediately rotted into a puddle of water. Several of her supernatural beings are using their supernatural powers to destroy the aliens. Just as Sun Sighing finished solving the problem, several aliens sprang out. She and a supernatural being next to her were thrown by the black long tail of the alien, and the whole person was thrown into the air. An alien crawled on the wall and jumped up and bit the supernatural being in 2, bleeding all over the floor. And she was thrown heavily to the ground, so painful that she couldn't breathe, and she couldn't get up for a while. The alien was about to bounce and pounce on her again. Everything happened so suddenly she lay on the ground and had no time to react. Her pupils were still reflecting the alien. The jumping image of Chapter 60. What 7 minutes? Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of a laser gun firing rang in her ears. Immediately afterwards, several interlaced blue lights streaked across her, and the lasers smashed the heads of several aliens to pieces, and then fell to the ground. Sun Sighing immediately turned to Wei Ran, who was standing next to Mu Zikang, who had just finished shooting with a laser gun, tilted her head and sneered. Miss Sun, as I said, the lair is very dangerous. Sun Sighing looked at the little girl she used to jokingly call in front of her, with a hint of sensibility. Mu Zikang and his party walked to a darker cave entrance. What does this smell like? It smells so bad, although a supernatural person covered his mouth and nose with a cloth strip. The smell that could be blocked was only negligible. Gu Ming poked forward, came back and said to Mu Zikang, the inside is their dining hall. Mu Zikang nodded and was about to walk in with his long legs. Wait a minute, Sun Sighing, who had a few wounds on her face, was so suffocated by the smell that she almost lost all senses, and she suppressed her nausea. Why do you have to enter such a disgusting place? Sun Sighing understood what the dining hall meant, but admired why did Zikang go in. Mu Zikang cast her a cold look, as if you liked it or not, and went straight inside. Sun Sighing and his party had no choice but to tear off the material from their bodies and tie it thicker around their nose and mouth. After Mu Zikang and Wei Ranran went in, they were glad that they had learned from the past and put on a full-face gas mask. Otherwise, the smell of this scene would not have to eat for 3 days. The inside is full of broken bodies and limbs. Half of the cave is piled up, some of which have rotted in running water, and there are still many maggots wriggling on it. There are still a few complete corpses that are in the giant view state and may burst at any time. Mu Zikang didn't want Wei Ran to stay here too long, so he dragged her out quickly. After passing through the food hole, I killed a few aliens and came to a relatively spacious place with a height of 3 floors. Each floor has several cave entrances of unusual height, one of which is relatively large. This should be the main cave left by the researchers at that time. The larger one should be the exit Wei Ran guessed. That's right, Mu Zikang nodded, and then looked up coldly, but it's not that easy to get out of here for a while. Everyone also looked along, only to find that the entire 3rd floor, all of them, were full of aliens, roaring. Gu Ming looked at the chronograph on his wrist. Brother Chang, there are still 7 minutes. What 7 minutes? Sun Sighing was puzzled. At this time, the aliens jumped down one after another and started fighting with Mu Zikang and his party. Su Yi just blew up the heads of the two aliens and kindly replied there are 7 minutes before this will explode. What not so lucky, the chest was emptied by the claws of the alien. Several waves of shock washed away Mu Zikeng and Wei Ran. A strange shape jumped from in front of her and was about to get on top of her. Wei Ran also ran towards the strange shape calmly and quickly, and then, under the force of the speed, she knelt and slid past the strange shape that was attacking her. Immediately jumped up, shot the alien's head with precision from behind until he fell to the ground. 2 more came up behind her, and it was useless to shoot at too close a distance. She dodged one after another while drawing out the knife at her waist, stepped on the bumps on the wall next to her to borrow strength, and jumped to wrap around the back of the alien closest to her. The knife fell to the alien's head several times in a row. Her continuous movement was only 4 or 5 seconds. Before the alien fell down, Wei Ran jumped 2 meters high and was followed by Mu Zi in time. Then, with a wave of his palm, the other alien was instantly shattered into several pieces. Wei Ran frowned in disgust, looking at the blade covered in black blood in her hand, with disgust on her face. Don't take it if it's dirty, brother, throw it away for you. Mu Zi took the knife in her hand, threw it horizontally towards a running alien, and directly cut off the alien's head. Mu Zikeng estimated the time, and he summoned a circular barrier. Sun Sighing only saw a silver light passing directly over them, but it gathered all the aliens here together. Guoming Mu Zikeng didn't say anything extra, but Guoming already understood. When Mu Zikeng removed the barrier, Guoming then called down the electric wall cage. Hee, brothers, let you disgusting things wash your bodies today. Zhang Nanfeng filled the electric wall with water to fill it up. Chen Wei injected a powerful dragon turning wind into it, and then summoned an extremely sharp giant wind blade. The inside of the shining electric wall instantly turned into a giant washing machine rolling continuously, but the hundreds of aliens inside all turned into black and bloody lumps of rotting flesh. Sun Sighing and the others could even vaguely see piles of viscera or intestines turning around inside the electric wall. She and the remaining 3 ability users spit it out directly. Mu Zikeng looked at Yan Yang again. At this time Yan Yang blocked all the openings here, except the exit. Yan Yang nodded. Pick up the fingers and wake up the plants. In an instant, countless thick brown rhizomes and vines broke through from every corner and crawled towards every hole, densely blocking them. Mu Zikeng held Wei Ran tightly and said coldly, "Go." The group immediately followed Mu Zikeng and ran towards the exit. The openings of those holes were just sealed, and Sun Sighing saw that there were still many aliens coming to meet them but were blocked inside, and they were tearing apart frantically. She couldn't help but panic flashed in her eyes and asked, "Can this block the alien?" Yan Yang just ran past Sun Sighing and replied uncertainly, "Well, maybe 3 minutes. Time is not destroyed by aliens, but there are several openings to be maintained, so Yan Yang can only maintain it for a maximum of 3 minutes. It also depends on the number of aliens and the distance of the summoner, otherwise the maintenance will be halved." Sun Sighing's complexion changed and she unconsciously quickened her pace, as if she would arrive in 3 minutes at a slower pace. The light in the front hole is expanding a little bit, but the roar of the alien is getting closer. Brother Cheng, the alien in the back, has broken free. Yan Yang has been disconnected from the plant because of the weakening of the power transmission due to the distance. Guoming looked at the timing of his watch. There was still 1 minute before the explosion. At this time the entrance of the cave was brightly lit, and the jungle outside appeared one by one. They came out, but the aliens followed closely behind them, and there were 40 seconds before the explosion, so they had to be kept inside to ensure that they would be blown to ashes. Mu Zikeng summoned a barrier to resist a large number of aliens and come out. Turning to Wei Ran's eyes with tenderness, Ran, "You go to the stronghold and wait for me first." Wei Ran naturally wouldn't be affectionate at such a time. He looked at Su Yui immediately take Ran and move them to a safe location. Su Yui nodded without hesitation and said okay. He took Wei Ran and his party and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the last 15 seconds, Mu Zikang used consciousness control to quickly push the barrier and the alien back to the innermost part. Wei Ran and the others, who had just returned to the stronghold, heard explosions from the alien lair, and the entire mountain was blown up, and even the place where Wei Ran was standing was shocked and fluctuated. Chapter 61. Who allowed you to touch her? When Sun Xiang was taken away by Su Yi, she was grabbed by Yan Yang before she had time to react, and then she arrived at the stronghold in the blink of an eye, followed by the explosion of the alien lair. She suddenly looked towards the distance that had been blown down and was still emitting thick smoke. He looked at Wei Ran again with a look of disbelief. You actually left him, Mu Zikang, alone to block the alien. Wei Ran snorted, my brother. At this moment, a group of gunmen appeared. Someone interrupted her. Don't move. Only then did Wei Ran and his party realize that the people who hadn't entered the lair and stayed here had already been controlled. Xiao Ran, we haven't seen each other for a long time, how are you? Wei Ran looked for the voice with cold eyes, and Chang Shuxian slowly walked out of the 20 or so people. No wonder Chang Shuxian didn't appear for a long time. It turned out that he wanted to not lose a single bit, so he thought that the Oriole would come later. Chang Shuxian's Sun Xiang looked back and forth between Wei Ran and Chang Shuxian and felt that the two of them were not that simple. Do you know each other? But Wei Ran's eyes were cold and her lips were tightly pressed. It's not right. Guming and the others knew that Wei Ran was not happy to see Chang Shuxian, so they took a step forward and blocked Wei Ran from behind. Chen Wei smiled harmlessly. Master Cheng, are you trying to rob us in the barren mountains? Chang Shuxian turned his eyes to Chen Wei. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. What I want is for you, I know, otherwise no one would want to go down the mountain today. Sun Xiang's red phoenix eyes were about to burst into flames, and she shouted angrily, impossible. This was taken out of the nest by her desperate efforts, and Chang Shuxian wanted to eat ready-made food. Ha ha ha! Chang Shuxian lowered his head and laughed wantonly, raised his head and opened his arms to stare at Sun Xiang's eyes and said in a dark tone, impossible. Look at this scene. How can you say it's impossible? He paused, turning to Wei Ran again with gloomy eyes. He continued, or is it that he can protect you, but Mu Zikang's life and death are unknown now? Behind Wei Ran, Chen Wei and the others, there was a cold face. Suddenly a person came up behind her. Xiao Ran, I've got you. Wei Ran was startled, and before she had time to defend herself, Chang Shuxian caught her facing Gu Ming and the others. She was so annoyed that she forgot for a moment that one of Chang Shuxian's abilities was the clone technique, and his main ability was to manipulate puppets. Yan Yang and the others looked horrified. Xiao Ran. Wei Ran struggled fiercely in Chang Shuxian's arms and reminded them, be careful of his avatar. Yan Yang. Chen Wei yelled. Suddenly, a large group of vines appeared behind the people brought by Chang Shuxian and tied them up tightly, making them unable to move. But Sun Xiang just wanted to call out poison skills but was pushed away by Jiang Nanfeng. Xiao Ran is still in his hands. So you can't use poison, but Chang Shuxian suddenly shouted, you all gather around me. Seeing that the people staying at the stronghold brought by Sun Xiang seemed to be unconscious, they all quickly ran to Chang Shuxian to form a circular human flesh wall. Sun Xiang sternly said, what are you doing? Chang Shuxian held Wei Ran in his arms and said to Sun Xiang with a sneer, you can use your poison ability. However, your people are so small, are you willing? Sun Xiang's face was tense, and her hands were tightly clenched into fists. Although not all the guards came out this time, they were also the most elite. There are not too many supernatural beings in the Snow Mountain base, and 2 level 21s were lost just now. And Gu Ming and Chen Wei secretly winked at each other at this moment. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blows and the sand flies up. Chang Shuxian was hurt by the sudden strong wind, and the sand was flying. He couldn't help loosening his grip on Wei Ran, and raised his hand to protect his eyes. And a large flash of light burst out from the ground and climbed towards the manipulated human wall. When those people touched the flash of light, their bodies twitched and fell limp to the ground. Just when Su Yi wanted to teleport while Chang Shuxian was relaxing, he suddenly saw Cheng Shexian and Wei Ran floating in the air. It's just that the two of them have separated at this time, and Wei Ran seems to be glowing with silver light. Brother Cheng. Chen Wei stopped the strong wind and everything stopped. Only then will they see the other side clearly. Cheng Shexian seemed to be lifted by someone's neck, his face was flushed. Wei Ran, on the other hand, was well protected by the protective shield, and slowly floated in one direction. Everyone looked over and saw the cold Muziking standing in the jungle when Wei Ran came down and gently took her into his arms. When Wei Ran thought of being hugged by Cheng Shexian just now, she felt as sick as if she had swallowed a fly. Aggrieved, she threw herself into Muziking's hard and warm chest. Brother. Tumwen bullied me. Blame me for being late. Brother is here. Muziking stroked Wei Ran's back. Sun Xiang looked at Muziking, who suddenly appeared in disbelief. How powerful the explosion was just now can be seen from the entire mountain that collapsed, but Muziking was unscathed. What kind of horror level is he? Muziking pulled Wei Ran closer to Cheng Shexian, who was still struggling in midair. Seeing Muziking's appearance, he was heartbroken and shocked. Such a strong explosion would neither kill nor maim him. But why? At this moment, he couldn't deny that he felt jealous and fearful of Muziking in his heart. Muziking's whole body seemed to be shrouded in haze, and there seemed to be a strong and icy breath that made people shiver and suffocate. The bottom of his eyes was covered with a layer of frost, and he said softly, "Want to come down?" Before Cheng Shexian could respond, he stretched out his hand, fiddled with his fingers casually. Cheng Shexian suddenly turned his direction, head down, and suddenly fell. The sound of boom landed on the ground, accompanied by Cheng Shexian's screams. Ah hitch hey hey hey, hitch hit, k. On Cheng Shexian's forehead, there was another puddle of blood gushing out from the original scar. Fortunately, it has been raining these 2 days and the land is damp, otherwise my head would have bloomed early. Muziking's face was stern, and he slowly parted his thin lips. "Who allowed you to touch her PA?" Immediately afterwards, Cheng Shexian uttered a second, more mournful cry. Cheng Shexian's left elbow showed an abnormal curve. His hand was broken. The miserable faces of Cheng Shexian, who were still bound by Yan Yang with vines, screamed. This scene, especially Sun Xiang, also felt that it was too cruel. Just when Sun Xiang thought that Muziking was about to kill Cheng Shexian, Muziking withdrew his hand in time and pulled Wei Ran and Guming to disappear in an instant. Of course Muziking wanted to kill Cheng Shexian, but just now Wei Ran pulled his hand in time. How could he understand Wei Ran's worry? If Cheng Shexian died here today, it would directly disturb their next trip. And Wei Ran didn't want this kind of rotten person to disrupt their journey plan. Back to the small villa at the Snow Mountain base. Coming out of the lair, I always felt stinky, so everyone took a good bath first and then had a good rest all night. After waking up the next day, everyone was busy setting up the small villa. Chen Wei was busy preparing tonight's dishes in the kitchen. Su Yi and Yan Yan Hian Hiro hung up the red lanterns they exchanged from the Hushan market in the morning. Wei Ran was still tidying up her flowers and plants in the courtyard. She had been watered for a few days last time, and she became more alive, but after going out these days and coming back, she was tortured to death again. When she was trimming with scissors, there was that enchanting and charming voice behind her. Wei Ran. Chapter 62. 30-year-old sensational. Wei Ran turned around and saw Sun Xiang, still as charming as the first time, but there was no trace of contempt in those single phoenix eyes. She knew that Sun Xiang came for the egg liquid, so she invited her into the living room to wait. As soon as Sun Xiang sat down, she took out more than 20 tubes of egg fluid she collected yesterday and carefully placed them on the table. "This is what I took, and they are all here, so I don't keep one." The egg liquid on the coffee table nodded and asked Su Yi to move out the big box in the corner of the wall. When Sun Xiang saw such precious egg liquid randomly placed in a corner where no one cares about it, She felt a sudden pain in her temple. This is something that was exchanged for your life, and you put it so casually like this. Can you respect it? Wei Ran looked dazed. It's already been put away. Isn't it the safest place in the corner? Who would know what it is? Sun sighing was angry. But when she saw Su Yi move a big box and open it again, she took a breath and was shocked. How did you extract such a large amount? There are transparent bags as big as the buckets of water in the past, filled with clear green egg liquid, and there are 5 large bags. She immediately felt ashamed. What Wei Ran and the others extracted was in stark contrast to the little egg fluid she extracted. Wei Ran pursed her lips and chuckled. We have a lot of people. Sun sighing now understood why Chen Wei insisted that 70% of the cost would be paid. Indeed, according to this amount, her amount is very small, and I can take 30% of it, which is really taking care of myself. She adjusted her mood and said to Wei Ran according to what was agreed before, I will get it when you divide it. After she finished speaking, she wanted to get up but was stopped by Chen Wei. Miss Sun, don't leave in such a hurry, we only talked halfway before. Sun sighing's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Don't tell me that 30% don't want to share anymore. And Chen Wei just slowly pushed back the more than 20 tubes of egg liquid she brought on the coffee table. Sun sighing thought that Chen Wei just returned the ones she picked up, so she gritted her teeth and accepted. Because no matter the amount of extraction, or the ability to walk out of the nest intact, if it weren't for Mu Zikang, how could he still be sitting here? She just wanted to reach out to take back the pitiful egg liquid on the table. Okay, But then she saw Chen Wei slowly pushing the big box on the ground to her. Surprised, Sun sighing froze at the gesture where she just stretched out her hand. She didn't know why, so watching Chen Wei's actions made her messy. Miss Sun, I only said half of what I said last time. The other half is. Chen Wei paused, and turned his eyes to look at Sun sighing seriously. I am willing to give you 70% of my money. I wonder if it will be possible be friends with Snow Mountain Base. Sun sighing frowned slightly. She is not stupid. As long as she accepts the 70%, she owes Mu Zikang a favor that is too big to be clear. But if she doesn't accept it, it will be of no benefit to her. Moreover, the strength of Zikang and his team is obvious to all, and it is no exaggeration to say that they are currently the strongest. After standing next to this big tree, the Snow Mountain Base can ask them for help if there is anything to do. At this point, her expression is slightly restrained. The previous strand of wavy long hair was stroked back, charming in the future. The Snow Mountain Base will also ask everyone to take care of it. Chen Wei smiled kindly to each other. For the New Year's Eve dinner, Chen Wei cooks Mandarin duck hot pot, which is spicy and delicious, and wild mushroom soup is light, which caters to everyone's taste. There are also a variety of side dishes for hot pot. The most important thing is that everyone laughs and laughs around the steaming hot pot. Gu Ming, who usually doesn't talk much, was obviously in a good mood and opened a bottle of red wine. Everyone had a drink with great interest. After Su Yi put down his wine glass, he put his hand on the back of Yan Yang's hand and said a little excitedly, I have a family with Xiao Ying, but it's like not having a family. I haven't had the meaning of 30 years since I was sensible, but the meaning starts tonight. Got it. Jiang Ninfeng said with a smile. Su Yi has studied a few TVB courses, but it's different. It's okay to be sensational. Everyone was amused by Jiang Ninfeng's words. Chen Wei sighed and said at the beginning of the end of the world, we were still novices. I still remember that we were a little cautious when we killed zombies for the first time. Gu Ming put down his chopsticks and said coolly, who said we would give Nanfeng grilled something, but what came out was only a small flame. Jiang Nanfeng stepped in again. Yes, haha, I still remember. That would make me laugh to death. Hey, did you too? You should restrain yourself. Jiang Ninfeng, how good are you? You can nail a zombie and it will melt. I won't, Wei Ran covered her mouth and smiled as she watched her companions on the table laughing and chattering back and forth. The so-called family members are not only related by blood but also have a sincere heart and give unconditionally for it. The family puts trust first at all times, regardless of others. At this time, Mu Zikang stood up with Wei Ran, raised his goblet, and slightly hooked his mouth. This is just the beginning. We will take a longer journey together in the future. Happy New Year. Mu Zikang is usually cold-hearted, yes, but today it is rare to say something with a common meaning. At this time, everyone is a little excited. They also stood up one after another, raised their glasses, and cheered together Happy New Year. In the evening, Mu Zikang sat on the rocking chair on the balcony of the room with Wei Ran in his arms. Wei Ran saw that outside there were no fireworks like previous years, nor the bustle of people coming and going, but just a quiet night. There are also crescent moons and dots of starry Milky Way in the sky. Brother, in fact, apart from being cold, it's pretty good here. At least the people inside won't worry about the arrival of aliens, and they can live and work in peace and contentment, Wei Ran murmured into Mu Zikang's hard, firm and warm chest. Mu Zikang lowered his head and sniffed the fragrance of her hair, then kissed her delicate cheeks, and said softly, Ran likes it. Then it's okay for us to stay here. Anyway, he has all the heating equipment. There will be no worries about the cold here. Isham, don't. This is not our ideal place. Wei Ran raised her eyes to Mu Zikang. Nuo Nuajiao said, I want to go to more and more places with you until we find a place that belongs to us. Mu Zikang laughed a few times in a low voice, and Wei Ran felt the trembling of his chest on his back. He pressed close to her ear and sprayed hot air on her most sensitive part. Then Ran. Do you want husband and wife to follow? He turned over inside, hung his hands on the back of his neck, and stared at Mu Zikang with crimson eyes. Where are you going? He whispered into his ear, husband. These two words made Mu Zikang straighten his body and beat his sanity to ashes. Flames burst out of his eyes, and he picked up the guard, ran into the room. Then, throughout the night until the sky was clear, there were sounds of women begging for mercy and groans accompanied by men panting and saying some nasty love words on the bed. But Chapter 63. Who provoked me first? On the first day of the Lunar New Year, Wei Ran, who had been tossed by Mu Zikang all night, fell asleep until almost noon, and Mu Zikang hugged her on the bed and coaxed her to get up. Wei Ran pouted slightly and said in a slightly hoarse voice, Him. It's all my brother's fault. My waist is about to break. Wei Ran remembered being turned over and over by him last night, and trying different things. And this morning, it was like a storm that swallowed her. Mu Zikang laughed in a low voice, his sexy Adam's apple slid up and down, his palms were free in the seductive and smooth curve, and finally kneaded in the soft flesh of the slender waist. He whispered next to her ear, well, blame me, but who provoked me first last night? Huh. Feeling the changes in his body, Wei Ran quickly fell softly into his arms and acted like a baby. I'm hungry. Mu Zikang knew that he tormented her hard last night, so he didn't think about doing anything. The corners of his mouth were raised, and the bottom of his eyes fondly hooked her tall nose gently. Brother will carry you down to eat. When Wei Ran packed up and went downstairs, the first floor was empty. Wei Ran looked at Mu Zikang. Where are they? Mu Zikang took out a bowl of porridge from the kitchen. There was a spring festival fair in the Snow Mountain base, and they went there. You finish the porridge and I'll take you go. Her eyes lit up and she nodded heavily. Mu Zikang and Wei Ran went to the market and it was almost gone, but there were still some stalls, but they were all selling things that were already worthless in the last days. For example, Wei Ran was selling jewelry at a stall before she stopped. There are many boxes on the table which are full of valuable jewels and jade. One of the heart-shaped pink diamonds is dazzling. Although she is not very keen on jewelry, she can also see that this pink diamond was very valuable in the past. She pointed to the necklace to compare with herself, and asked Mu Zikang with a smile, brother, is this chain beautiful? If the pink diamond can be hung on Wei Ran's fair and delicate neck, it will look even more dazzling. The corners of Mu Zikang's mouth slightly grew. It looks good. The stall owner is a girl in her 20s. She originally thought that Wei Ran couldn't afford to sell it, so she just sat proudly and didn't raise her head. But at this moment she couldn't bear to hear the deep and melodious voice. She kept looking up, and what caught her eyes was the man with a gentle face but restrained and steady. She stared straight at a man who had never seen such a clear and bright man after the end of the world. At this moment, Musikan looking at it, it was a cold and thin gaze, and there was no trace of tenderness. She was so frightened that she lowered her head suddenly, jealous of Wei Ran who was treated gently by Musikan. Why wasn't she standing beside him? Suddenly she vented her anger on Wei Ran. She sneered and said, "Oh, do you want it? This is cut from the best pink diamond, and I have never been willing to take it with me once, so don't touch it with your hands. You won't be able to afford it if you break it." Wei Ran originally thought about giving more in the price exchange, because it should be extremely difficult to sell these jewels that are no longer valuable in the last days in the replacement market. But I heard she was not happy when she heard the stall owner's words, especially when she was thinking about her man. Wei Ran deliberately held Musikan's arm and raised her head with a smile, and said in a delicate voice, "Brother, do you want to buy it?" Musikan stroked her fair little face, adjusted her plush hat, and then nodded her nose lovingly with his fingers. "The most important thing is whether my Ran likes it or not." Wei Ran wrinkled her nose mischievously at him, and turned to look at the ugly girl with a cold face. "Yes, how do you want to sell it?" The girl didn't expect Wei Ran to ask for it, because it's already afternoon, it's almost time to close the stall, let alone exchange. There are only a few people staying in front of her stall. The girl thought that if the necklace was expensive, she could exchange it for some big items. Her imagination made her temporarily forget the unpleasantness just now, and said to Wei Ran 100 bags of rice, 50 caddies of meat, and 50 caddies of oil. Wei Ran snorted and laughed. Seeing that she couldn't help but smile, the girl suddenly became annoyed. "What are you laughing at?" Wei Ran couldn't breathe from laughing, and Musikan patted her on the back, and said helplessly, "Okay, when you get angry, you will be there when you are in pain." Wei Ran let out a sigh of relief, and wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. "I said, these used to be worth a lot of money, but when is it now? It would be nice to give you some. I still want 100 bags. Other stall owners have cleared away long ago. Why are you still here? Don't you have any idea?" The stall owner girl should have lived a privileged life since she was a child. Getting up to put away the things on the table. "I won't sell it anymore." Wei Ran leaned a little towards the girl and said coldly, "Are you sure? I think I will go to your stall one day and say I want to buy it. I should be the only one." The girl stopped, and Wei Ran's words hit her sore spot. Wei Ran was indeed the only one. "Then, how do you want to change it?" The girl looked reluctant. Wei Ran just stretched out a finger and said 3 words, "A bag of rice." The girl screamed, "What? It's not for sale." "Sell." At this time, a young man appeared in front of the stall, with a smile on his face. Selling. A bag of rice is worth a bag of rice." The girl stomped angrily. "Brother, this pink diamond is only worth a bag of rice." The young man scolded impatiently. "It's enough for someone to ask for something that can't be eaten or used." Wei Ran nodded in agreement, and it was still the man's current equivalent exchange. Xiao Ran Yanyang's voice moved from far to near, and soon came to her side. "Why did you come out? The busiest market in this market is over, but we haven't been here before." Seeing that Yan Yang was empty-handed, Wei Ran asked curiously, "You've been shopping here for almost a day. Didn't you buy anything?" Yan Yang covered her mouth and laughed straight, pointing behind her. "It's all at Su Yi's." Wei Ran glanced behind her, and saw that the battle was simple. Su Yi was dragging a flat 4-wheeled trailer in his hand. Although the truck was full of things like a hill, he was still very leisurely, with one hand pushing the cart and the other hand in his pocket. Guing and those big men were still walking slowly behind them with several bags of rice in their hands. Probably they hadn't finished changing them. "Good guy, is this bringing back the bazaar?" Yan Yang said with a smile. They had been bored for a long time, and finally they saw some lively ones. People gathered to watch them, and they wanted Su to watch them too. At this time the girl at the booth was extremely impatient and said, "Do you want more? If you don't want it, just, The girl was covered by her brother's hand, and her brother smiled flatteringly. "Look more, take a look." The girl and her brother naturally also saw that the cart was full of things, and they belonged to a well-off family. Su Yi also chose a white diamond bracelet for Yan Ying. Then the 2 chains and 2 bags of rice were sold. This is really the price of rotten cabbage, but in the last days, money is a pile of waste paper, and now the reality is that a bag of rice can break the sky. These are equivalent to scrap copper and rotten iron, which can be exchanged for materials, which is quite good. Finally, they pushed the cart back to the cottage. In fact, many of the things they sell today are gadgets for fun, such as the poker they are playing now. Nanfeng, how can you take back the cards you played? Gu Ming, put down Nanfeng's cards for me. Nanfeng said that he accidentally dropped them. That's right, what's the matter? Not allowed, the card was dropped. Get out. No, I said the 3 brothers, how can they still quarrel after playing cards?